detonation. Space isn't kind to the desperate, but Durin had long since accepted that. The Wanderer was more than a ship. It was survival, a lifeline in an endless dark. He adjusted the controls, eyes scanning the endless void for his next salvage. Seraph, the ship's AI, hummed in his earpiece. "Seraph, you've been flying for 16 hours straight. That's inefficient." Durin smirked. "Yeah, so is starving." Their partnership was an uneasy balance. Seraph analyzed, calculated, and criticized. Durin survived. A red warning flickered on the console. A distress signal. Seraph. Anomalous transmission detected. Durin leaned forward. "Let's hear it." The static-laced message was garbled, but one thing was clear. Someone, or something, needed help. The Kessler drift loomed ahead, an enormous derelict vessel, its fractured hull a graveyard of metal. The distress call repeated. A warning? A plea? Durin wasn't sure. Seraph. "That ship's reactor core is unstable. Catastrophic failure is imminent." Durin. "Define imminent." A pause. 12 minutes. Durin cursed. That wasn't long, but he'd flown through worse. The Wanderer trembled as debris from the dying ship pelted its hull. The wreckage groaned, metal twisting in protest. The ship was collapsing. Durin's pulse quickened. "Bring us closer, fast." A flicker on the scanner, a weak but familiar signal. Bolt, Durin exhaled sharply. That little drone had been lost during a previous salvage run, presumed destroyed. But now, its beacon pulsed defiantly amid the chaos. Seraph. Bolt signal is originating from deep within the wreck. Estimated retrieval success rate, 24%. Durin clenched his jaw. "Still better odds than dying out here." The ship shuddered violently. Time was running out. Seraph. Entering the Kessler drift is inadvisable. Structural integrity is compromised. Reactor failure is imminent. Probability of survival. Durin. "Spare me the numbers. I'm going in." He locked his flight suit, checked his oxygen levels, and secured his tether. The Wanderer's docking clamps engaged, groaning against the crumbling wreck. Durin exhaled. "Keep the engines warm. If this thing starts to go, I'm gonna need a fast exit." Seraph. "Understood. I'll prepare a retrieval course for your corpse." Durin smirked. "That's the spirit." The airlock cycled open, revealing the dark, silent interior of the Kessler drift. The ship felt wrong, too still. Durin gripped his sidearm. "All right, Bolt, where the hell are you?" The structure groaned. The floor trembled beneath his boots. Then, somewhere in the distance, something moved. Durin exhaled, stepping forward. "Let's bring Bolt home." Behind him, the airlock hissed shut. The Kessler drift trembles, its skeletal frame groaning as the reactor core pulses erratically. Once a formidable starship, now a floating tomb in the void, its final moments tick away. Shattered hull plating drifts like dead leaves in zero gravity, each collision sending up silent bursts of fractured metal. The ship's automated distress signal stutters, barely a whisper over the chaos of radiation storms crackling through space. Inside the Wanderer, Durin grips the flight controls, his pulse pounding. The warning indicators flash a merciless countdown, 3 minutes until core detonation. Seraph, tell me we have a safe approach. The AI's voice is calm but grim. Survival probability, 9%. Debris impact, radiation exposure, gravitational fluctuations all exceed safe parameters. Durin exhales sharply. "So you're saying there's a chance?" Seraph does not dignify that with a response. The Kessler drift looms closer, a carcass resisting the inevitable. Gravity waves ripple, as its failing systems try to stabilize, sending ruptured cargo containers spinning into the void. This is insanity. Even by his standards, Durin tightens his grip. "Prepare emergency docking. We're going in." Durin narrows his eyes, lining up the Wanderer with a barely functional docking port. The Kessler drift is shaking itself apart, but he has no time for hesitation. "Seraph, initiate autobrace. This is going to be ugly." "Correction, this is already ugly," the AI replies flatly. "Brace for impact." The Wanderer hurtles forward, dodging careening wreckage with razor-thin margins. A twisted support beam smashes against the hull, rattling the cockpit. "You know, I used to be good at this," Durin mutters, forcing the ship into a brutal deceleration. The docking clamps engage with a violent clunk, barely holding against the unstable vessel. The ship groans in protest, but the seal holds. "Docking secured," Seraph confirms. This is an unwise decision. Durin unstraps himself. "Noted. Keep the engines hot in case I need a quick exit." Your definition of quick is statistically implausible. Ignoring the AI, Durin yanks on his helmet and seals it tight. The Kessler drift is seconds from imploding, and he has one shot at this. The airlock hisses open, revealing absolute darkness. Durin steps inside, his boots clicking against the metal floor as artificial gravity flickers unpredictably. A dim red emergency light pulses along the corridor, revealing twisted bulkheads and shattered consoles. The air is thin and stale, laced with the metallic tang of ozone. Then the ship shudders. A deafening screech echoes as a severed bulkhead groans and gives way. Durin barely throws himself forward as it collapses, sealing his only known exit. He curses under his breath. "Seraph?" Static. The ship's comms are failing, the reactor's instability scrambling signals. He's on his own. Adjusting his wrist-mounted scanner, he tracks Bolt's signal. A faint, persistent beacon, deeper in the wreckage. Durin clenches his fists. No turning back now. The corridor tightens as Durin moves deeper. The ship's death rattles, growing louder. Sparks shower from exposed wires, casting eerie shadows against corroded walls. Every step is uncertain, every noise a threat. The signal grows stronger. A sudden tremor shakes the ship, sending debris crashing from the ceiling. Durin ducks, barely avoiding a cascade of ruptured conduit. The reactor's death throes are growing violent. "Bolt, you better be worth this," he mutters. Turning a corner, he finds a collapsed maintenance shaft, partially blocking his path. The signal is coming from beyond it. Durin doesn't hesitate. He squeezes through, tearing his suit against jagged metal. Then, movement. Something flickers in the corner of his vision, a dim glow, barely perceptible. He freezes, a monitor on the wall flickering erratically, displaying lines of corrupted text. The ship's AI is still clinging to life, and it's trying to warn him. The monitor glitches, cycling through fragmented system logs. Durin stiffens. Hostiles? A metallic clunk echoes from the corridor ahead. He draws his sidearm, heart pounding. The emergency lighting flickers, and in the next flash, he sees them. Old security drones, half rusted, their sensors flickering between blue and red. Their programming is failing, caught between recognition and aggression. One unit twitches, its targeting laser sputter into life. Durin doesn't wait to see what happens next. He dives into cover as a bolt of plasma scorches the wall behind him. The drones hesitate, systems conflicted. It's his only chance. He sprints forward, blasting one drone in the sensor array, sending it into a death spiral. The others twitch erratically, uncertain whether to engage or retreat. Then the ship lurches violently. The reactor is reaching the point of no return. A tremor shakes the wreckage. A deep, guttural groan reverberates through the ship as the reactor core reaches critical instability. Seraph's voice crackles through the failing comms. "You have minutes, not seconds. Get out!" Durin ducks into a service hatch, narrowly avoiding a falling support beam. His wrist scanner pulses. Bolt is close. He turns a corner, and there it is, a small drone wedged in a collapsed maintenance alcove, its optics flickering weakly. "There you are," Durin breathes, reaching out. The moment his fingers brush the drone's casing, the ship convulses with another explosion. The reactor is dying, and if Durin doesn't move now, he's going to die with it. Durin moved through the shattered corridors, his breath slow and controlled despite the chaos. The beacon was weak but steady, pulsing from beneath a tangled mess of collapsed support beams. "Seraph, confirm location." The AI's voice crackled over the comms. "Bolt is directly ahead. Structural integrity of this section is failing. Expedite retrieval." Durin knelt, his gloved hands scraping against twisted metal. Sparks flew as he dug through the wreckage. Beneath layers of debris, Bolt lay motionless, its optics flickering erratically. The small reconnaissance drone emitted a faint, warbled chirp. "Easy, buddy. I got you." The ship groaned as another explosion rippled through the decks. Durin didn't hesitate. He braced his boots against the deck plating, yanking hard. Metal screeched and Bolt tumbled free. Its stabilizers sputtered, barely keeping it aloft. "Come on, we're leaving." Another tremor rocked the ship. Dust rained from the ceiling and warning klaxons howled through the corridors. "Seraph, status." "The Kessler drift is approaching total structural failure. You must return to the Wanderer immediately." Durin hoisted Bolt into his arms. "Yeah? Easier said than done?" Durin sprinted toward the escape route. Bolt clutched tightly against his chest. The passage ahead was blocked. Seraph? Options? "Your original path is inaccessible. Reroute." Durin muttered, already moving. Emergency strobes painted the corridors in blood-red light. Bulkheads hissed as pressurized air vents ruptured. Then a new sound, a mechanical whir. "Seraph, what was that?" "A dormant AI subsystem has reactivated. It perceives you as a threat." Durin gritted his teeth. Of course it does. The turret clicked into place before Durin could react. A red targeting beam swept across the hall, locking onto him. "Move!" Seraph barked. Durin threw himself sideways as gunfire shredded the air where he'd been standing. He rolled behind a fallen beam, heart pounding. Bolt emitted a weak chirp. "Yeah, I know. Bad timing." He gauged the turret cycle, every burst revealing his dwindling cover. A flickering console caught his eye. If he could reach it, he could shut the turret down. With a deep breath, he lunged. A bullet grazed his shoulder, burning hot. Ignoring the pain, he slammed a fist against the console, overriding the targeting parameters. The turret powered down with a defeated whine. "Seraph, if there are more of those, now's the time to tell me." "Scanning. I suggest immediate evacuation." Durin stumbled into the final airlock, panting. The reinforced doors barely held against the ship's convulsions. "Seraph, is this thing still operational?" "Marginally. External pressure is unstable. Detaching manually poses extreme risk." Durin wasn't listening. He secured Bolt to his harness and braced against the failing gravity. Through the viewport, he saw drifting bodies, ghosts of the past crew. The ship had become their tomb. He reached for the manual release. "Durin," Seraph warned, "timing must be precise." "On my mark," he exhaled. 3, 2. He yanked the lever. The decompression blast launched Durin into open space, tumbling wildly. The Wanderer's beacon pulsed in the distance, a beacon of safety. But before he could engage his thrusters, another signal flared on his HUD. A distress beacon. Seraph confirmed. Analyzing, it is a cryopod, still active. Durin's gut twisted. Where? Deep within the wreckage, life signs weak. "Damn it," he hissed. Every instinct told him to leave. The ship was seconds from destruction. "Durin, your chances of survival drop significantly." And theirs? 0. Durin adjusted course. "Then I'm going in." Durin maneuvered through the fractured hull, debris swirling around him. The cryopod flickered in the chaos, its occupant locked in a frozen nightmare. He reached for the controls. The panel was fried. "Seraph, override the lock. Manual intervention required." "Of course it is." Bracing himself, Durin pried open the panel, exposing a tangle of wires. He cut 2, rerouted another. The pod hissed. The lid slid open, revealing a woman inside. Her skin was pale, her breath shallow. His heart stopped. "No way," he breathed. "It's you." Seraph's voice interrupted. "Reactor failure imminent. Evacuate, now." Durin snapped back to reality. He secured her against his harness, grabbed bolt, and fired his thrusters. The Kessler drift roared behind them, a dying beast collapsing upon itself. The Wanderer loomed ahead. Seraph opened the docking bay doors. Durin rocketed through just as the wreckage imploded, swallowing the Kessler drift into oblivion. He landed hard, gasping for air. The woman stirred, her eyes fluttered open, and with a voice laced with recognition and disbelief, she whispered, "Durin." The wrecked ship groans, metal twisting as its failing systems stutter and die. Catastrophic failure detected. Structural integrity at 5%. Reactor collapse imminent. Durin grits his teeth, hoisting Bolt's damaged frame over his shoulder while gripping the cryopod's handles with his free hand. The ship's flickering emergency lights cast eerie shadows against the fractured corridors. Gravity stutters, shifting between bone-crushing force and weightlessness. A deep shudder rattles through the wreckage. Overhead, pipes burst, spilling searing steam into the already suffocating air. Durin, grunting, "Seraph, I could really use a clear path here." Seraph, comms, static interference. All routes compromised. Best estimate, move forward and hope. A deafening explosion tears through the ship's spine, sending a cascade of debris tumbling toward him. Durin braces, shielding the cryopod with his body as he powers forward. Seraph's voice crackles, distorted. Seraph, comms. 30 seconds until the Wanderer must disengage. If you are not aboard, survival chances drop to 0. Durin pushes forward, feet slipping on the warped metal flooring. The ship wails like a dying beast refusing to go quietly. His breath comes in ragged bursts, the heat pressing down on him like an iron grip. Bolt sparks against his shoulder, its optical sensors flickering weakly. The drone lets out a faint, distorted beep. "Durin!" Breathlessly. "Yeah, buddy, I know. Not a great time for a nap." The corridor ahead caves inward, sealing the direct path to the exit. Durin swears, eyes darting for an alternate route. The only option? A maintenance tunnel barely large enough for him, let alone the cryopod. With no other choice, He shoves Bolt ahead, then wedges the cryopod into the tunnel. Every second burns away. The ship is dying, and if he hesitates, so will he. Drin stumbles into the final chamber, lungs burning. The exit looms ahead, an airlock promising salvation. But when he slams his hand against the console, nothing happens. Drin, frustrated, "Oh, come on, not now." The screen flickers. System override, access denied. He yanks his plasma cutter free, sparks flying as he slices through the locking mechanism. The metal glows red hot, the scent of scorched circuits filling his nostrils. Seconds stretched like eternity. Behind him, the reactor lets out a final warning shriek. The ship is moments from obliteration. With a final desperate strike, the lock gives. The airlock hisses open. The force of the decompression wrenches Drin off his feet. Bolt spirals out first, followed by the cryopod. The void of space swallows them whole. Drin fights to control his spin, but there's no leverage, no tether, no way to reach the Wanderer. Behind him, the derelict vessel finally gives in to its death. A firestorm erupts from its core, the explosion illuminating the darkness in an orange and blue inferno. Drin, grimacing, "Seraph, you better have a plan." Inside the Wanderer, Seraph's predictive systems run 1,000 calculations per second. The ship tilts, thrusters firing in precise bursts. Seraph to itself, adjusting trajectory, stabilizing, deploying retrieval arm. A mechanical claw shoots outward, locking onto the cryopod first. Drin twists in space, arms outstretched. The second claw extends. Seconds away from failure, the explosion shockwave accelerates toward them, a wall of destruction ready to swallow them whole. The arm catches him. A lurch. The Wanderer pulls them in, shields barely holding as the wave of debris grazes past. Drin collapses onto the deck of the Wanderer, gasping for air. Bolt lies beside him, twitching but intact. The cryopod hums softly, its occupant still frozen in time. The explosion's remnants fade into the endless void outside the viewport. Silence settles over the ship. Drin stares at the ceiling, then lets out a weak, breathless laugh. Drin, chuckling. "Well, that sucked." Bolt beeps in exhausted agreement. The cryopod emits a quiet chime, signaling stability. Drin finally exhales. He's alive. Against every possible odd, he's alive. And as he looks at the frozen figure inside the pod, he knows this isn't over, not by a long shot. Drin collapsed onto the medbay table, his breathing ragged, every muscle in his body screaming in protest. His suit was scorched, torn in places, revealing bruised flesh beneath. The acrid taste of smoke still clung to his throat, and the echoes of the ship's destruction rang in his ears. Beside him, Bolt lay motionless, its once bright optics flickering weakly. The drone's frame was dented, wires sparking from exposed sections where shrapnel had torn through its casing. Its core pulsed erratically, struggling to reboot from the catastrophic damage it had sustained. The cryopod, pristine in comparison, hummed softly. A thin layer of frost coated the reinforced glass, obscuring the face of its occupant. The life support indicators blinked steadily, confirming that whoever was inside was still alive, for now. Drin exhaled heavily, running a hand through his sweat-matted hair. His body begged for rest, but his mind refused to settle. He had barely made it out. Bolt had nearly been lost. The Wanderer had almost been caught in the explosion, but they had made it, and now there was one more unknown added to the mix. The hiss of the medbay doors barely registered before Seraph loomed over him. The AI's synthetic voice carried an unmistakable edge of frustration, something that should have been impossible for an artificial construct. You could have gotten yourself killed. Durin cracked a tired smirk. Wouldn't be the first time. Seraph's humanoid projection flickered slightly, processing the response. You continue to exhibit reckless behavior. The probability of survival was less than, and yet here I am. Durin interrupted, voice hoarse but amused. We don't leave people behind, Seraph. That's the rule. The AI fell silent for a moment before responding. A rule that may cost you more than you realize. Durin closed his eyes. He knew that. He had known that the moment he made his choice. He sat up with a groan, ignoring the dull ache spreading through his ribs. His eyes locked onto the cryopod, breath slowing as a deep unease settled over him. Who are you? He murmured to the sleeping figure within. The frost on the glass had begun to recede, revealing faint features beneath. Whoever this was, they weren't human. Not quite. Durin had seen countless species in his years beyond Earth, but something about this one set his nerves on edge, a feeling he couldn't place, an instinct whispering that this was bigger than a simple rescue. We don't leave people behind, he repeated under his breath, as if reassuring himself. But had he just brought something aboard that should have been left to die? Seraph's projection flickered again, pulling up a holographic display of biometric scans. The results scrolled in glowing text, symbols, and data flashing across the interface. This does not match any known species in the database, Seraph stated flatly. DNA structure is partially human, but there are anomalous markers, highly unusual ones. Durin frowned. Partially human? A hybrid, possibly, but there is no record of such a being in any historical or genetic database. This entity should not exist. A chill crept down Durin's spine. He had faced war, seen the devastation left in the wake of collapsing civilizations, but this was different. So the question is, he muttered, rubbing its temple, who made them, and why? Before Seraph could respond, a shrill alert blared through the ship. The main console pulsed red, a new signal cutting through the void, a distress beacon, but not just any distress beacon. This one was precise, too precise. It had locked onto their coordinates with unsettling efficiency. Durin and Seraph exchanged a look. No words were needed. Someone knew they were here, and they were coming. The Wanderer drifted through the void, its engines humming with a steady but subdued rhythm. Beyond the reinforced glass of the cockpit, the infinite black stretched endlessly, speckled with distant stars that flickered like dying embers. It should have been comforting, that quiet vastness, but tonight it felt suffocating. Durin stood over the cryopod, his fingers resting lightly on the glassy surface. Inside, the frozen form lay still, suspended in a moment that had lasted far too long. A thin layer of frost clung to the pod's edges, veiling the features of the one he had risked everything to save, and yet something gnawed at him. Something felt wrong. His gut twisted with an unease he couldn't shake. He had seen countless cryopods, had recovered survivors from wrecks before, but this one was different. There was an unnatural stillness to it, a silence beyond sleep. Who were they? What had he brought aboard? Outside, the darkness loomed, fast and watching. Bolt's body lay in a tangled mess of damaged plating and sparking wires. His once bright optics flickered erratically, struggling to focus. The drone had taken too much damage. It was a miracle he was still functional at all. Durin knelt beside him, running a hand along the battered frame. "Come on, buddy. Talk to me." A sputtering noise crackled from Bolt's damaged speakers. His synthetic voice was weak, laced with static. "Oh, run." Durin's blood turned to ice. Bolt's optics dimmed, flickering once before shutting down completely. His broken form slumped, silent. For the first time in a long while, Durin felt something creeping at the edge of his mind. Fear. Beyond the Wanderer's hull, space stretched out into infinity. Cold, silent, eternal. But something moved within the abyss, a shadow among shadows, shifting between the distant pinpricks of light. Watching, waiting, Durin's grip on the console tightened. The feeling of being watched pressed against his mind like a cold hand on the back of his neck. It wasn't just paranoia. It wasn't just exhaustion. Something was out there, and it knew they were here. The Wanderer's lights flickered, as if something unseen had brushed against the ship's systems. Durin exhaled sharply. Whatever they had just pulled from that wreck, they